Okay, this is Rob Page. I've been working with Rob on study plans for how to prepare for a certification test. We talked about some vague general ideas last week, and now Rob's been putting together a study plan for how he can make more efficient use of his time as he studies. I'm going to let him kind of explain his thought process and some of his study patterns at this point, and we'll go from there. I just do this mostly because I believe just about any student can do this. Anybody, doesn't have to be a student. You can be out in your regular everyday job pursuing a certification somehow, and this is just good study habits or patterns that are going to help you prepare well. And so Rob's being brave. I don't think we've got things perfected yet on his study patterns, but this is his first attempt at trying to be able to spell this out. Here we go.
So I started out realizing that I had certain content that I needed to cover, and I just wanted to memorize it all and get done. But we talked about how it's important to have a model of the way you think you can learn better. And so I started out with building a flow chart on basically how I want to learn the material.
And Rob, if you'll send me this slide, I'll add this with the YouTube. I'll add it as a content item with this YouTube so people can download it, see it.
Okay.
So you're really, it's nothing all that fancy. How long did it take you to build something like this?
Like 15 minutes.
But this becomes very powerful in helping you,
right.
Make your thinking tangible. And so you can sit back and analyze it and say, is this really working for me or not?
Right.
It's great to have a model like this that you spell out, and then over the course of the semester, you can update this, you can change it, you can come up with new ideas and experiment with new things. But having something like this helps you just kind of
build around.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what I ended up doing to develop this was I just went into a room and turned on some music, and then went to whiteboard and said, okay, what are my resources? Put them on the board in boxes, and then said, okay, what are the outcomes that I want from this certification? Put those in some boxes on the board, and then just started to organize stuff into a sequential order. How am I going to get from here to here?
You notice that it looks like you got some loops in here and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I've got a decision loop, so I've got I have some memorization cards that I go through, and then I'll skim the book. If I find something in the book that I don't know, then I'll highlight it and put an index card into it.
Why don't you show the book like you were showing me?
Okay.
I thought that was effective.
Yeah. So in the book, I'll have
up into the camera.
So wasn't sure on this section, so I highlighted it real quick and throw an index card in there, and then later on I'll come back and learn more about it.
So there's about 5 or 6 cards in there, 4.
Yeah, currently
cards in there so far. So you're just skimming through it.
Yeah, these are the ones that I haven't gone back and processed yet. Like I haven't gone back. I have another 20 that I've already done.
Just kind of those key points that you want to go back and spend a little more time with.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. And so I'll go in and learn more about them, read through the section. As soon as I understand it, then I'll make a question on the card that is difficult enough that I'm going to have to think about it again. And I've noticed that the questions that I make are a lot more difficult than the ones that come with certification cards.
I agree, because you know how to challenge yourself.
Exactly.
They don't know. They're just blind guessing. And the assumption, when I've written those kinds of questions, the assumption is usually when you first start writing test questions, you start out most of the time just writing fill in the blank kind of ones. You go find some key text of, this looks like a really good idea that I think people need to understand. And then when you try to write a question on it, the first attempt is usually, I don't know how to write a question on this. So I'll just take out one of the words and I'll use that as one of the options, and that's how they create a question. That's a pretty surface level question.
Right.
But you find as you study these more, you'll get to where you can ask questions that bring different ideas together. So it's not just regurgitation. It's not just memorize the book so that I can get the right word. It's let's take these two ideas and synthesize and put them together in ways. And I may may not even know the answer the first time that I put those ideas together. But what happens if I take this idea and chain it together with this idea?
Right.
What's going to happen?
Yeah,
And those are a little bit more advanced questions. So that's good.
And I found that with some of the questions. For example, I was working on some syntax stuff. What a semicolon? What a semicolon does in a SQL script.
Mm-hmm.
It completes and stores the statement into the buffer, and it's not going to run unless you have another semicolon to end that, or you put a slash after it. A slash runs whatever's in the buffer.
And that forces you to get down at the very technical level.
Right.
To understand really what the heck is going on here and why.
Exactly. and then a space will store stuff into the buffer. So I started using that. I'm doing tutoring for the database classes, and I started seeing all of these problems where before, when I was helping students with errors in their code, I'd just say, oh, you have spaces, we can't use spaces. I had no idea why. But now I know, a space, all it does is store that line into the buffer, and then you're storing another line into the buffer, and by the time you get to your semicolon that finishes and it executes the statement, you only have one line.
And asking those why questions is very key. Why is this? Why does this happen?
Yeah.
And you may not get a complete answer the first time you study it out. You may get some indication or some surface level kind of answer. You come back at it again later, continue to ask those why questions.
Yeah.
If you turn yourself into a 4-year-old, you become a very effective studier.
So
why?
Yeah, you ask all these questions, and I actually had a fun little project that I worked on. One of the coding things that I wasn't really sure on how it worked was the set SQL prompt, and just basically changes when you go into the PL SQL environment. It will change your prompt to whatever you want. And so I not only went into the prompt, I figured out you could set the SQL prompt right here. You just do.
It says you're a pretty awesome person, Rob.
Yeah.
That's a nice greeting.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. So I set this part, but this other part I figured out that you have, in order to set the SQL prompt kind of permanently, it's not really permanent. You have to go in here and edit global login script. And so in there, I was like, oh, I can do a lot more cool stuff than that. And so I put in that greeting and some other things like that. And
it shows you today's date.
Yeah.
That's not the default.
No, it's not the default. So, and then I've been able to turn off some of the annoying feedback, because sometimes it'll give you like what your variable was at first and then what it is now. And I didn't want all that stuff in there, because I'm pretty sure I know what's going on in most of my programs. And if I want to turn it back on, it's easy. I know what the syntax is. So I went in and wrote a really quick anonymous block and started working on this. At first, I wanted to try and customize the SQL prompt to have special text in it. And so I tried to put it inside of an anonymous block, and it didn't work. And I was really frustrated, because I was like, I should be able to just parse a variable as a string and throw it in there. But it didn't work. And so I went and I had tried that for a while. And so I went and talked to Brother McLaughlin. He said, well, it's not going to work, because when you set, those are configurations. They do not work with any language in the SQL Plus environment. So it was kind of cool. I had a lot of.
Start to learn some of the limitations of
exactly.
software as well.
So
language.
I learned a lot with that, and it all started out with like set SQL prompt, and I ended up learning a lot of different set variables that you can use to configure.
Now compare that though with if you were probably somewhere in that textbook that you've got, there's something that talks about that set. How likely are you to remember that when you just read it in the textbook? You're just reading through a chapter.
Yeah, not likely at all.
Versus trying to go out and become creative with this, play around with it, and asking questions. And when you're getting stuck, go to reference lists, go to people, experts, people that know.
Yeah.
why things work. If you're studying in a mode where you're trying to be creative with the stuff that as you're learning it, somehow it sticks and stays better.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
you know, I've used what's his name? Bloom's taxonomy of learning several times. We talked about that one last time. Creativity tends to drive all the rest of them. If you're trying to just experiment, be creative, you can't help but need to gain knowledge through asking questions and analysis. You're going to analyze why things fit the way they do, where their limitations and strengths are, and how they relate to each other. And you get a much more robust knowledge base to draw from that's yours, and it's personalized, and you own it.
Exactly. And then I found that I've been able to share it. Like at first, this part where I put share knowledge is my ultimate outcome for all of this is I want to share the knowledge with somebody else.
Okay.
And I was a little bit nervous because I was like, I don't know how well that's going to work or how I'm going to do it. And I found as a tutor, it's really easy for me because now when people have errors, why you have the error, it's because of your semicolon. Your semicolon's in the wrong place. And so what it's doing is this and this and this. And students understand better. I'm not just saying, no, you can't put spaces in.
And they're like, this is so frustrating. I don't know why I'm supposed to add these dumb things anyway.
Yeah, and you can explain to them, say it's doing exactly what you're telling it to do, just that you don't know what you're telling it to do. So it's been really cool, and I've been able to share this with the people that I work with tutoring. Like if there aren't many students, we'll work on OCA certification stuff, and that works really well because we can talk about it and experiment with it. That's really good.
So what are your review cards that you have on here? Are those the ones that you're putting in the book, or is that something else?
Those are the ones that I put in the book.
Okay.
So I'll take those, I'll put those in. When I learn more, I'll go in here and put the source. So I'll usually throw a page number on there and then put a brief explanation. This has actually changed a little bit. I thought I was going to do exactly like this.
You mean you change your method as you go?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
You should be doing that.
Okay.
You should be identifying.
This doesn't work very well.
Yeah. Should be identifying your study habits and practices and testing them for their efficacy.
Right.
Is this really working for me?
Right. Because
if not, how do I change and adapt and get better?
Yeah, because I really don't have enough time in my day to sit down and write a brief explanation and
of everything in the book
and a syntax example for every single thing. So what I do is I'll write one question that answers that I have to answer that is key to understanding that syntax or that concept. So I'll come up with a question and I'll write it and then put an answer on the back and throw it into my review.
I usually encourage people to do that specifically with the stuff that you're struggling most on. Now, don't bother with the stuff you've already got down.
Right.
Now, that's just wasting your time. But you'll find that the ones that if you're finding that you're spending more time with a certain element, go ahead and do something like this.
Yeah.
Create something out of it. Do something to give yourself a memory aid. Try to find an analogy or a mnemonic or a little word game or a story to tell yourself to try and help make more sense out of it. If you're having trouble making one, talk to other people about it. And you'll find that as you try to teach somebody else, they can help you. Oh, that's like this. Or you can, oh, okay, that helps. Or as you're trying to teach somebody, sometimes you'll be trying to think of how do I convey this idea to somebody else.
Right, and you have to really think through it.
I've got to find something that they can relate to help bring that concept alive. To me, that's why the Savior taught in parables, because it's a very powerful teaching technique, but it's also a very powerful learning technique. Right? To understand the world around you, try to relate things together, and you'll find that you get it better.
Right. Yeah. And I've had that experience with just sharing this with other people. It just cements in my brain, and now I can go through a bunch of stuff that I know, and it's second nature. So.
Okay, I think we'll stop this for now because the people watching are probably bored too.
Yeah.
Hopefully this helps.